Well, that was some parade, huh? So let me tell everyone how that sort of came about. About a year ago, I was talking to the people at Shrewsbury Media Connection, and we decided that we were going to do a show about special needs. My son, Jagger, as most of you know, was in the talent show. He forgot the words, and the video went viral. And he has about 10 million people who've seen that video. And it was great inspiration a few years ago, and it's changed our lives. We started a nonprofit to help other people with special needs. And as such, this year was really tough. The COVID crisis forced Jagger to be home since March. He's been completely remote because I unfortunately take something for immunosuppression because I have psoriatic arthritis. And can't believe I just said that on TV, but it's true. So I'm in a situation where if he got sick, I could get really sick and end up in the hospital. And that's pretty scary stuff. So he's been remote. And this whole show, like I said, started with my journey for guardianship because Jagger was about to turn 17 and he's pretty profoundly affected. Most people know that. And he's had a really tough time of it. And going through all the processes, I had no idea where to start. I mean, I had friends who could help me in certain areas, but, like anybody, nobody has the exact same journey. And that's really the long and short of it. Any kid you meet with special needs is a kid you met with special needs. They're all different. They're all unique. The family situation's unique. The family support level's unique. The circles of support. And this is one of the reasons that I wanted to do this parade for him. I just thought it was going to be friends and hanging out and, coming by and maybe a couple cars, what have you. And it turned into a little bit more than that. We ended up having police and fire, and we had about, 30, 40 friends come by, and it was just amazing. And Jagger at first was a little weirded out that, the police were coming. He didn't know why. And then the people just kept coming and coming, and he saw face after face that he knew, and you could just see under his mask his eyes were all happy, squinty, and he was just beaming from ear to ear, and it was just so beautiful to see it. And I was glad I was able to give that tiny gift to him after a year like this. And I know so many people have had so much going on. Some of you have lost loved ones. Some of you are on those front lines: nurses, doctors, retail workers, grocery store people, people who are doing deliveries. I mean, everyone has to step up and do their piece. And it's such a huge piece. So like I said, it was a socially distanced parade. Everybody had their masks on. And it was really, really important to all of us to just be able to do something really super fun for him. And that's what that footage, that's why that was just on a little while ago. And it's jumping into, as I mentioned, the circle of support. I have a very good friend. Her name is Cheryl Ryan Chan, and she is a person-centered planner, and she has created this along with a community reciprocal time bank, which we're going to get into in the interview that's going to be following me talking. And she is one of those people who has been with us on the journey. I met her when Jagger was probably 2 or 3 years old. We were at the Autism Resource Central is what it's called now. It was the Autism Resource Center of Central Mass. And we met there, we talked. Her and Sue Loring, who was a director there, got me involved with AFAM, which is the Advocates for Autism for Massachusetts, which is they kind of work in conjunction with all the different autism centers. The Doug Flutie Foundation, I think, used to have a representative that was on the board there, and lots of other local organizations, Till, and a few others, and they would, and the ARC, and they would really, help kind of, move agendas forward as far as helping supporting people with autism and other disabilities. And it was really an honor to be on that. And then the next year they asked me to be on the steering committee for the Autism Resource Center at the time, and Cheryl also had been on it for many, many years. And it is just such an honor to have her coming on. I can't wait for everybody to meet her and hear about the program she's doing and the work she's doing. And she has gone from, just starting here in Central Massachusetts and brought this full circle. It's going all over the country now. It's just an amazing, amazing story. She's a pioneer. Her son is in his mid-20s, and she is a go-getter, a firecracker. She's an inspiration for me, and I am so excited to have her on this. So thank you guys so much for all the support you've given me, Jagger, and the show over the year. We couldn't be happier. We're really looking forward to the second year and really being able to provide some really great resources for you and really move things forward. So thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you soon. Thank you so much. Have a great 2021. Hi, welcome back to Connections. This is Stacey Levine Lavely, and today I have a really special guest. She is someone who has been with me and Jagger on our journey for probably about 15 years now. So she was a pioneer in this field. She is the initiator of Nikki's Law, which is so helpful to make sure that people who have harmed people with a disability do not have the opportunity to do that again. She spearheaded it with Mike Moore and gained lots and lots of momentum. And she is just amazing. Today, though, she is here to talk about a couple more ideas that she is going on. She has a being person-centered program that talks about circles of support, how to support the families, how to support the individuals. I mean, it's really a community effort at the end of the day, and also a community building bank of time, which I think is going to be so amazing. Her journey is so unique, so I'm going to let her really kind of open this up. So welcome today, Cheryl Ryan Chan.
Thanks, Stacey. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this. And I love talking about what I love, whether it's what I love to do or what I love to be involved in. I love it all. And I'm always happy to do that. And especially when I get to sit and chat with an old friend, so to speak.
I know,
I mean that a long time friend, not an old friend, but we're all getting a little old, right?
Yeah, we're young.
Right. So thanks truly for having me. I was thinking the other day, I remember going back about 15 years ago, sitting with you in a restaurant where you introduced yourself, and I was with our dear friend Sue Loring, who is another pioneer. And you had just moved into the community, and we were like, sit down, we'll tell you who's here and who's who and what, and welcome. So I'll never forget that. That was one of my favorite memories. So I'm doing a lot of things in the meantime. I myself only arrived in Massachusetts, oh gosh, it's about almost 22 years ago.
Okay.
And I came with my son, Nikki, and my daughter, Isabel. And at the time, Nikki, who has severe autism, was only about, I think, 7 or 8 years old, something like that. And we arrived in Massachusetts and set up camp, and eventually, very quickly, made our home here in central Massachusetts in Auburn. And right from the get-go, when I arrived, I knew that I would need to build myself a community of support because I needed it so very, very desperately. And way back then, we didn't have all of the connections via technology that are available right now. So it was really a grassroots effort from the beginning to make phone calls and do some, Google searching and all that. And I found the Central Massachusetts Autism Resource Center. And that was where my own Massachusetts journey began with Nikki. And very quickly, I became that center became an important part of my family. And I pressed myself into the community as quickly as I could for the purpose of really networking and
Yeah.
finding out how I could get the help that I needed. But at the same time, quickly learning that you grow friendships when you find others who have lots of things in common with you. And, that goes for whether you have children with disabilities or not. When we have children and they're young, our social circle is usually made up of other moms and dads, classmates and so on and so
Hmm.
forth. So I found that to be the same thing. So I remained an active member of the community over the years. Nikki's journey all along the way was one that was very, very, very challenging. And like I said, he is severely impacted by autism and intellectual disabilities. He is also severely impacted by behavioral challenges that led him down a path to in and out of hospitalization, psychiatric hospitalizations, ultimately in a couple of different residential placements that were targeted specifically for really significant behaviorally challenged individuals. And I was able to gain the kind of strength that I needed. Both my husband and my daughter and I, all three of us, gained the strength that we needed to get through that by maintaining communication with our community and finding others who we could connect with and feel comfortable with, and surrounding ourselves with the love and the strength that came from all of them. So yeah, it's been a very long, long journey. Eventually, once Nikki was settled in the place where he is now and thriving like he is now, I began to kind of recover, I guess, and start to grow personally. And I found that I had my own gift of being able to network and bring people together. And so I utilized those skills to do some fundraising and some marketing and some development professionally. And then I stumbled upon something called person-centered planning. And that really became my passion and continues to be. So I do that professionally. I do it across Massachusetts. And I've also been really, really blessed to be invited to speak nationally about the things that I do. And I do a lot of work now out in California as well for families. So it's really, taken me to places that I never expected. In the meantime, I'm always passionate. Has nothing to do with professionally, but personally, I'm always passionate about bringing people together and about the power of community. So it all kind of wraps together, both professionally and personally, all those things that I love most.
Yeah, you see that overlap and what have you. Now, as far as that goes, so can you explain to us a little bit more about what person-centered planning actually is and what it looks like?
Sure. So person-centered planning is an actual tool. It's a thing that is a tool that kind of it's a series of methodologies and approaches, I guess, where you guide. I'm what is called a facilitator. And when I work with families, I guide individuals and their circles of support, which is the people that are in their community that they invite. I guide them through processes whereby they come out with a plan for their future that goes into the next few years of their future. And the key element that's different from what happens within a system, and most of the people that I work with are supported by state systems, federal systems, school systems, all of that. What is absent within those systems is the person-centeredness. And what I mean by that is we live in a very system-centered world where the conversations around what a person's future might look like have to do with what's wrong with them, what's what they can't do, what needs to be fixed, what's absent, how much it's going to cost, and what the local things that they might be able to try are, as opposed to creating the conversation around the person's own dreams, gifts, talents, what they want for themselves, the capacities that they can contribute to their communities as citizens, who they have in their lives, what their potential is, and creating a plan that takes the stewards the humanity of the person, places that at the top of the conversation, and those services and supports support those ideas as opposed to the other way around. So what I do really helps to inform conversations at the systems level, but it also does some other really, really essential things, which is it brings people in to a place where they become far more understanding of the person's own humanity and their dreams and gifts and desires. It helps the circle of support collaborate in a more effective way. It puts everybody on a level playing field, and it puts that individual who has disabilities in charge of their own conversation to the extent that they can be in charge of their own conversation.
That's so exciting to, really have that underpinning, really creating that foundation as kind of the jump off point from where they can really start their journey and really be able to move forward with it and kind of, paving the road ahead of them, which is, really a big piece of it, because in many ways, especially when you have a child with special needs, family sometimes is great and other times not so much. A lot of times it's very much like the Friendsgiving, where you've created your own family and you've had to kind of, piecemeal all that together and really bring those pieces into each other. And the fact that you have those tools to really give people that place where they can go to get that started, that's such a key piece. And we're going to drop that below here on YouTube. And if you're watching this on the TV, you're going to be able to see the resources for Cheryl, how to get in touch with her here, because it's such a crucial piece. So often these kids are left with, this is what we have to offer, to you right now. It's not like they, put out the buffet and say to you, okay, these are all the different services. It's just you're constantly trying to find this service and that service, and you're kind of making it the best you can from your knowledge base. And to have someone who's a professional like yourself guide people and really open up what all the possibilities are, instead of just what they can figure out from either their friends or reading the mass.gov website or something like that. It just makes it so great. And a place like we were talking about earlier, the Autism Resource Central is, I believe what it's called now. They're such a great place to go and get some of those pieces. Now, when you're dealing with the person-centered pieces of this, are you dealing more with that either 18 to 22 or 22 plus, or is it really the full spectrum of ages, in those, I guess under those parameters? Like, how does that kind of work in with what you're doing?
Well, a person-centered plan can be done for anyone at any age, technically. However, what I tend to tell people is that the people who will most benefit from a person-centered plan are people that either are fall into one of two categories. Either they are expecting a transition of some kind in the next maybe 1 to 5 years. And so a lot of times that word transition immediately makes you think of that 14 to 22-year-old age range, right. From going from school services to adult services, for example, or from entitlement of the school system to adulthood, whatever that may look like, with or without services. It can also mean a transition into or out of a new living situation as an adult, maybe a new programming situation, a kind of transition. Or the other category that may apply, where a person would really benefit from a plan, would be if they are kind of stuck where they are, where their wheels are spinning. There's really no transition coming up, but they need one. They need to come to a place where they have a better understanding of what their gifts and talents are, where their capacities, gifts, and talents might be welcome in the community, and how they might be able to become greater contributors to their community while also receiving the kinds of things that they need to just grow and progress. A lot of times people end up, and this particularly applies to adults, I think, but, especially with folks with disabilities, they may get into a job situation or a living situation that works, but very rarely over time, does anybody ever go, well, wait a minute, what else is there? Is there
Hmm.
more? Can I get a promotion? Is there room for me to do more at the job that works for me? Yeah, it worked for me, but really 10 years of doing the exact same thing, don't we all kind of wish and hope that we can do more, right? So
Absolutely.
those are the two categories where people really get the most benefit from a person-centered plan. But the truth is, technically the methodologies could be applied to just about anyone.
Now, with the person centered, now is that more for people who are, say, in a group home situation or, kind of living on their own in shared living or what have you? Or are you really kind of looking at it also for a person who might be under guardianship, who lives at home? How does that play out, like in those two different, scenarios?
Yeah, I've done this for almost 10 years now, and I've worked with absolutely every single possibility, scenario, plan, design, anything. I've worked with people who, are almost entirely independent, but need
Hmm.
some support here and there. And I've worked with, the folks that fall into the category more similar to my son, highly intellectually disabled, nonverbal, challenged and in need of 24/7 services and supports. I mean, and everything in between. It
Hmm.
really is a universal methodology that works for anyone, regardless of their ability. And that's a question that I get quite a lot, because there are people who aren't able to communicate or articulate, and those are two different things. The things that there are desires and their dreams, and I get that, but within a good person-centered planning facilitator knows how to pull that out of the conversation by kind of embracing the people that are around them and talking to them about what they know about the individual, and kind of training them to, within the sessions that I work with them in, training them on how to steward the voice of the person. So there's a lot of barriers that people think, well, I can't do this because my person can or can't either communicate or wrap their head around the concepts, and that's just not true. We can make anything really effective, and no, regardless. I often remind people, it, verbal communication or any other kind of communication does not mean, or the challenges does not ever mean, that the person does not have preferences, desires, dreams, things they love,
Absolutely.
things they hate, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
And we can't make those two things equal, or say that something isn't possible just because there's no voice, so to speak, physical or otherwise. It's absolutely true that we can find the humanity if we just look well, closely enough, and talk more openly, and create a space that's safe and positive.
Absolutely, and that's such a big piece, is creating that safe space. I've seen so many kids, especially on the spectrum, who are nonverbal and what have you, and they can make, without any words, like you said, really make their thoughts and feelings known. I mean, I remember when Jagger was a little boy, he used to run around going, I want. And he'd be like shaking his head at things, and there's like 14 things, and you're like, okay, is it the cup? Is it the pencil? What is it?
Right.
And he would just wait until we figured out what it was that he was, wanting. And I think if you're willing to be open, really open yourself to that kind of nonverbal piece and really dig down like you do, I think that's really, really important. I'm hearing you talking about this. So now, I don't know if certify is the correct word, but do you like train? It sounds like you're training people to do, obviously you're only one woman and you can only do so much. So like, are you doing like some kind of certification program with the circle of support, or how does that piece work as far as being able to bring this to a more, regional and then hopefully national and beyond, for more, kids' voices and adults' voices to be heard?
So I have done some facilitator training over the years. And so there is a small group of people within the state who have taken my training. I'm actually about to head out to California to do my facilitator training in the springtime. That's very different. That is very different from actually being a part of a person-centered plan. Facilitator training is about a 3 full days of training, and then a whole lot of supervised observation and supervised practice. And facilitation is a very, very difficult job. It is not something for the faint of heart. You have to be really strong, really confident. You have to manage some very serious, very difficult dynamics within groups. There's a lot to it. So when I do facilitator training, for myself, I'm rather selective about who I'll do the training for, because it's really important that it's done well. And so, yeah, I don't do that as often. In terms of people who participate in the plan, what happens is after I'm completely done with the team, with the individual and their circle of support, what I have hoped to do is planted the seeds and provided the roadmap to them, kind of carrying on with the plan as it was conducted, and making it happen, taking that roadmap, which is in the form of a very, very long report that I provide following the plan meeting, and using that as that guide to getting toward the future. And so what I've hoped is that the circle of support has come together, understood, and created an actionable plan to move forward.
That's amazing. Now, as you're going along and things, hopefully will change, and, they'll be stronger and what have you. And, they have plateaued, let's say, do they come back to you and then kind of like recreate some of those pieces, like branch off in a particular direction that seems to be, successful?
Yeah, sometimes the plan, well, not even sometimes, almost 100% of the time, the plan results in some real eye-opening ways that the focus person can move forward, that people hadn't even heard of, hadn't even thought of, hadn't even opened their mind to. So yeah, people do come back to me. Usually, a couple, 3, 4 years after their initial plan, and say, it's time for us to do this again, because the circumstances have changed, or we've gotten to this point, and we need that roadmap again.
Exactly. To start over and reach the next level of success as, moving forward. That is amazing. So I love this. This is incredible. I mean, the work you're doing is just so heartwarming. I'm almost in tears, like listening to it. And I also want to get into, you have another really cool concept, which I think is just incredibly amazing, because as we've been talking about the circle of support and moving the person forward, it's really important to know that the circle of support themselves also need to have wind beneath their wings as well, to be able to continue to support that person and stay in the, background, but, have them still be the shining star. But, their reserves get tanked, whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, physically. People get older and can't deal with the stress levels that, they might have been able to tolerate when they were a little bit younger. Siblings decide they don't want to be part of, helping the child. I mean, there are just so many different scenarios that can play out. And especially like if you're from a small family and you were depending on one person and now that person's gone and you're just like, well, what do I do now? It's really tough. So I love this new concept, the community builders and the time bank. So I'd love to really take a little bit of a deep dive in here and talk about this, because what you've put together here is also just incredibly amazing. I don't even know how you find time to sleep with everything you're doing. So I'd love to hear more about that too.
Sure. So, and thank you for bringing that up. So the other thing that I do that I mentioned earlier is I have started up from scratch a new initiative. It was a little over a year ago that I started throwing it out there to my network and saying, we need to come together, and we need to build communities of support. And I'm a big fan of community capacity building and asset mapping, which is outside of the realm of just disabilities, and really it really applies to all sorts of communities all over the world, neighborhoods and worship communities, and communities of faith, and communities of all sorts. So in that, my interest in that came about really in a number of authentic ways, but really came forward for me as I started doing a lot of this person-centered planning. Because one of the essential elements of person-centered planning is that the person has a circle of support. And while that's an essential element, I quickly learned in my early days of person-centered planning that a whole lot of people really don't understand the concept, meaning they understand about inviting people to their plan, they understand about having people in their lives, but they always push back on me saying, I don't have anyone. And so circles of support really hones in on that. But in the meantime, I took that concern that I have and realize that not only do folks with disabilities need guidance in terms of creating sustainable circles of support beyond themselves, like you said just now, Stacy, caregivers also need the support. And what happens is that we have all lined up into the same queues and stood in those same lines, not facing each other, but facing those service booths, so to speak. If you imagine walking into a bank and everybody is standing in a line, one behind the other, waiting for their turn at that bank window. That's kind of the visual that I have when I talk about community building, because what's happening is we're all standing in line for the same thing, but while we're standing in line, we're not turning to each other and starting to say, oh, who are you? And what do you do? And why are you here? And what do you need? Those conversations are gone from our society. We've decided somehow that asking for help or having conversations with someone nearby that might turn into something valuable is a sign of weakness or weird or something like that. And that just breaks my heart. So I also knew that instead of just saying to people, instead of just preaching to people, you got to turn and talk to each other, you got to ask for help, and blah, 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 like, who am I to say that? Let's start creating those opportunities with intention. So I started creating gatherings, what I called community building gatherings. And because I have such a great group of within our community, a great group of friends, we started gathering and people started listening to what I was saying. And what I said was, where I used that analogy of standing at the bank, and I said, the systems that we're all standing in line for, they're not going to tell us how to keep our marriage together. They're not going to sit down and have coffee with us. They're not going to help us paint the room or organize our house the way we need it to be done 20 years ago to get that anxiety off our chests. They're not going to they're not going to do our plumbing for us because the sink has been leaking and my shower doesn't work because my kid broke it years ago. On and on and on, right? But those are the things that we can be doing for each other. And in turn, we can be giving back. So the Community Builders Initiative is just that. It's groups of people who have now created little chapters all over the state. We're gathering, we're doing capacity identification and inventorying so that we know who we are and what we're able to give and what we need. And we're starting to connect people and connect needs and connect talents. And what that has grown into now is something that is where we are now. I just started talking about it recently, is a time bank, which is yet another tool and methodology that I didn't invent. Yay, I didn't have to invent that wheel. And we're going to be purchasing and launching this online service where we become members and we say, I can paint a room, but I need, a half hour of respite or a driver to take my kid or watch my other kid while I take my kid to school 1 day a week or 2 days a week. I need so and so. I need this. I need that. Already, I have utilized this to get some rooms painted, have
Yep.
my basement reorganized. I've gone and helped build a handicap ramp. And,
Wow.
I could go on and on and on. Mowed lawns,
Mm-hmm.
because I can do that. I don't need to be a professional. Who cares? I can throw on a pair of shorts and mow a lawn, really.
Yep.
But to suggest that that doesn't have any value to the person who hasn't been able to mow their lawn, and
Mm-hmm.
so they're ashamed of how their property looks, and it's all
Mm-hmm.
because they're with their kid.
Yep.
To ease that from them is priceless.
Absolutely.
And like I said, just sitting on the phone with somebody because they need to be able to talk with someone who's not, babbling, that is priceless to them. And likewise, the person who came to help me paint my room, I was in tears because they were helping me paint my room, and it eased such an anxiety that I had had for ages. And because I was able to turn around and give back, I didn't have to feel guilty. It's reciprocal. It's about giving and taking.
Exactly. Exactly,
And
because you do have talents that you can, just because you can't, like you said, paint the room or fix the plumbing or what have you. But if you can create like a marketing thing, let's say you're great at marketing or you're good at resumes. I mean, there are a million different things that families are going to need, because it's not just all about the person with the disability. It can be anyone in the family who's struggling because of the time and resources that are taken away due to that. But it just like, it gives you such pride to be able to help another person, because there's nothing like really giving to somebody else. I mean, that's such a critical piece. And it just makes your heart so warm, and then you don't feel so guilty like taking. And it's just amazing. Now, I know you have some workshops coming up, and I'm really excited to talk about those for a minute, because then I know we have to like hop off, unfortunately. But I want you back because I want to talk more about this, and as you're developing these programs and what they're looking like, how people can get involved, all that kind of stuff. I think that'd be amazing. But I know you're going to be doing a workshop, so I want to let you jump in on that, and then we can wrap things up. And like I said, I'd love for you to come back, and as your time bank especially really grows, I think that's going to be such a crucial piece, because it is going to be in so many different places, and you'll be able to pull from so many different regions of the state and probably beyond as you really gain traction on this. So tell me a little bit about the workshops.
Yeah, so the workshops go back to that concept of the circles of support.
Right.
Because again, doing years and years of person-centered planning and telling people they need to invite others into their lives and so on, I realized that I kept preaching and preaching and preaching, but I wasn't giving practical advice on how to actually do that. And I really think that needs to be approached with intention. So I created a 2-hour workshop that I ended up doing for quite a few years on, the basics of creating a circle of support. I do it for organizations, I do it for families, but then I realized that I needed to do a deeper dive. So I now have a hands-on workshop, even though it's virtual now. Started off with hands-on. It's about 5 hours, 4 to 5 hours long.
Wow.
So it's a half day. And we come together and we learn tricks and tips and methods and approaches on how to do the ask, how to build relationships, and so on. And a lot of the discussion, frankly, is about getting past our own barriers to opening up and being vulnerable as caregivers and parents, and understanding that we need to start working on this now while we are still around, rather than saying, no, I'm not going to let anybody in. I'm not going to let anybody in. And then I'm going to die. And our kids are left with no one and nothing to rely on. And that's just absolutely the wrong approach. We can do better. The gifting our loved ones with their own circle of support to sustain beyond us is the most important gift we can give them. So my hands-on workshop, there's one date in January. It's coming up on the 13th, also
Awesome.
February 13th, and then March 15th. It's all the same workshop, so everybody can sign up for one of them. The best way to reach me to find out more is to simply email me at CherylRyanChan@gmail.com. I also will put something about it up on my person-centered planning website, which is simply www.personcenteredplanning.com.
Very simple. I love it. Okay, we're also going to have that, like I said, on the YouTube channel, everyone. So feel free to reach out to Cheryl. She's amazing. Cheryl, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It has been such an honor to hear your journey and especially what you've created. It's just going to live on as a legacy long after you, and your children and your husband, I know, are your support and your touchstone and your inspiration, and you have just done so much with it. And I still can't believe your daughter's going to college. My goodness. So thank you. Yeah, right. So thank you again so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Stacey. You also are a mentor and a pillar, and so it's lovely having you in my circle. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. And everyone, keep unity in the community. See you again next time on Connections. Have a great day. Bye-bye.